Welcome to the With You Rugby Podcast, designed to give you an in-depth look at the United States Rugby Foundation, including our grant programs and recipients, fundraisers, events, and much more. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Vizard, president of the United States Rugby Foundation, and I want to welcome you to another one of our With You podcasts. And with our recent U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony in the books, we thought it'd be a good idea for those who weren't able to attend to get to know this year's Hall of Fame inductees and special award recipients just a little bit better. And today we welcome in a man who's been involved with the sport for many decades, especially in the Eastern Rockies rugby region and the Golden Oldies rugby tournaments, and one of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award recipients, Mr. Fred Alexander. Welcome, Fred. How are you today?
Fine, and thank you for having me.
Oh, sure, Fred. You look like you got quite a background behind you. Is that a home office of yours?
Yes, it is.
Oh, cool. And, Fred, what we do with all our guests on this With You podcast is we ask them a little bit about their background. So where'd you grow up? What sports did you play as a kid?
Well, I was born and raised in Texas. I went to Amarillo High School where I played football for Bum Phillips. He was my high school football coach.
Cool.
And then I ran track and also wrestled.
And how'd you get involved with the great sport of rugby?
Well, I'm an architect, and one of the architects I was working with played rugby in college. And I said, well, what's rugby? And so he explained to me rugby, invited me out to a practice, and I got hooked, line, and sinker.
And tell us a little bit about your rugby career. What positions did you play? What clubs did you play for?
Well, I played for the Denver Barbarians. Then I founded and played for the Lamar Dust Devils for 9 years. And then I closed my office in Lamar and still wanted to play rugby. So I created the Colorado Senior Old Boys. And my reason for that is I didn't want to quit playing. I was over 40 and I thought, well, gee, if I have some guys that are similar to my weight and my, abilities, that I could still play till I'm in my 80s, which I've done.
And is it an all-star team? Tell us a little bit about the Ol'Pokes. Was it a regional team? How'd they form?
Well, what I did is I didn't want teams to think I was stealing players from their teams. So what I did is I created an over 40s team that if we played your team, you had to play for that team if you wanted to, or you could play for us. And that was accepted throughout the clubs. So teams like the Highlanders, the Quins, different teams, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, they all started, their 40-year-olds came out and said, hey, I want to still play, so that's how the ball got rolling.
Is that the slide over just a little bit? Is that the Ol'Pokes logo behind you?
Yes, it is.
And where'd that artwork come from? Who created that?
I did.
Did you really? But tell us, come on, slide back in now. Tell us about some of the most memorable moments you had with the Ol'Pokes.
Well, part of it was going to Aspen and playing in Aspen Rugger Fest, which I think it's been going on for 50 years. And I played in the third one and then missed maybe two more before they reached 50. So, and I played with the Barbarians. I played, with the CSOBs. So, that and so that's really was my excitement. And then I got hooked up. I had seen some information about Golden Oldies, and I wrote a letter to them and started talking to them. And I've missed one Golden Oldie since I started going, which was in I think it was 91 that we started. And I've missed one, and that was going to Africa. That's the only one I've missed.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Golden Oldies in a second, but you kind of skipped over what positions you played and what were you like as a player. Can you talk us to a little bit about what positions you played? What were you like as a player?
Well, I started out my first day, one of my very good fellow prop fans, he and I started playing on April 1st of 1969. And he and I were friends till he passed away. And we both started out as he was a loose head and I was a tight head prop. So that's what I started with. But as I told you, I played with Coach Phillips in football, and they moved me to fullback for a couple of plays because I was the team punter and all that, or second team punter. And so I played that. I've played second row. I've played hooker. Hooker experience I had two props. One was 325 and the other was 355. And I was 250 as a tight head prop. In between, and they're like 6'3" and 6'4", you know, they're big guys. And they put me in as the hooker between them. And the three of us took on the whole scrum, and the rest of them were on the other side, you know, over. So they had a few more players to pass to, and we scored.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. You talked about Bum Phillips. So what was he like? I mean, we've seen him in the NFL, quite a character. What was he like as a high school football coach?
Same type of person. Very good, very encouraging for you to be able to play the sport with him.
Now, before we talk about the Golden Oldies, you're also involved with the Eastern Rockies Rugby Union for a number of years. What were some of the positions you held with the Eastern Rockies and some of the responsibilities you had there?
Well, I was the member. I was part of the membership committee. I was part of the selection committee and the disciplinary committee, and then I was also elected into the organization.
And from what I have read, it seems like wherever you went with the SOBs, when they went on tour, your late wife, Ernie, was always around. Tell us about your wonderful relationship you had with Ernie and some of the most memorable moments you had together on rugby tours with her.
Well, the gear that we had, the majority, I finalized the colors purple and gold for the team by the Purple Mountains Majesty and the Golden Sunrise. So that's how we came up with purple and gold colors for our team. And then my wife, she designed, this was probably after about 3 years that we had been dating and that. And so we started, and she started designing jerseys and travel gear and stuff like that. So she was that. And then when we went to the Golden Oldies, she had been a flight attendant for 13 years. And so she knew the ins and outs of travel overseas, which I had never done. And so we started over, and so she would help book the flight and then book rooms for us and all that too. So she did a lot of, believe me, a lot of the work. And she recruited several of the other wives to help, you know, in doing that. When we had our purple and gold bank every year, which was a season ending, season beginning function. And she and the ladies, we would go play rugby and the ladies would fix, you know, a meal for us. So there were several ladies that helped her.
So, Fred, did you ever figure out how many tours you and Ernie have gone on together?
It was well over 50.
Wow. Boy, that's a lot. No fights along the way, huh?
No.
Well, that's perfect. Gosh, that's tremendous.
No, she became the queen mom of the rugby team. And when she passed, there was people at her ceremonies that got up and dedicated poems and things that they had made up to the queen mom. So that was very memorable, and that's one of the nicest memories I have.
Oh, I bet. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Golden Oldies. You're known the world over, but especially here in America as the USA representative for what was the Golden Oldies Rugby Organization. How were you able to get that gig, and what were your responsibilities in that role?
Well, I started out, the first one that I started talking to them was in San Diego. And the guy that had been doing it before, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but he had quit and they were looking for a new rep. And Air New Zealand was one of the sponsors of the Golden Oldies. And I had gotten to know several of the Golden Oldies people by flying with them back and forth, to Australia. And so with their help and that, I was able to, and I tried when we had one in San Diego, I started it was 2005. I started talking to him about Denver as a Golden Oldies, rep. And then I finally got it after, 11 years in 2019, but COVID blew that away. So I'm still working on getting Denver back in there again.
Now, in that role, you were able to travel to all those Golden Oldies rugby tournaments. Is that right?
Yes.
Man, you must have some great times. What were some of your favorite venues of those tournaments and some of your favorite memories of those events?
Well, Vancouver was one. That's where I asked Ernie to marry me. So that was a big one. And then we went to Sydney, and one of the friends that I had met previously that played for the Alice Springs Dingoes, we became he was a hooker, and me being a prop, we got to know each other very well because we played each other many times. And so we got to go to them and see where they lived. And then we were the highlight of the weekend at Alice Springs playing the Dingoes in their stadium. And they had about 300 to 400 people watching us. So that was one of my big moments. I really, really enjoyed that. And then the one other one, when I played Lamar Dust Devils, we played the Denver Barbarians. And that was the team that I had played with before. And we came back and we beat them 10-9. And they still give me static about that, believe me.
Hey, Fred, you've had a long career in our sport that we all love. What are you most proud of in your rugby career?
I guess being nominated into the Hall of Fame. That would be the greatest honor a rugby player could have, in my opinion.
And did you, as we said earlier in this podcast, we've already had the Hall of Fame event. I hope you enjoyed yourself there. Did it meet your expectations that evening?
Oh, yes, that and more. And there was this master of ceremonies. He did a pretty good job, too.
I know you had a bunch of your friends there in the crowd. Billy Gregg was one, I believe. And you don't know this, but Bill Gregg was my first mentor in rugby. He was playing with either Kalamazoo or Western Michigan University at the time, and they were kind of like our big brother when the Grand Rapids Rugby Club formed. And Billy was a back rower, and I was playing number 8, just learning the game, obviously. And we would play them quite often, and we went on tour with them, and so I got to know Billy quite well. And he was just a real patient coach for me, and just was teaching me all the tricks, and he had a lot of them, but great player, great guy, and really it was fun to see him that night. And so tell the people who are out there what it was like that night, how it all went, and what your friends said to you.
Well, one of the things I was able to get my youngest son, he flew in, he lives in LA, and he flew in for the event. And so he was there. And then a gentleman named Paul Hoskins, who was a good friend of mine, and he was also a hooker. and he and Andrew sat together. And when we would go to Aspen, Andrew would stay with Paul when I was playing. So Andrew and Paul were very, very close friends. So that, and then other friends, I had a gentleman named Rick Kessler, who his nickname was Mud Duck. So we sat and talked to him, and I had a table of 11 people. Dan O'Leary, I met him in, we were working out at a gym in downtown Denver, YMCA, and he had a rugby jersey on, and I walked over to him and said, "Hey, do you play rugby?" And he says, "Yeah." And I says, "What position?" He says, "Prop." And I says, "Welcome. I'm a prop too." And so we have been friends ever since. I got him on the Barbarians. He played on the Barbarians. And then when I created the CSOBs, he joined us too. So had a table.
Ernie would have been,
one of my friends.
Do you think Ernie would have been
from Georgia?
Is that right? Wow. Now, do you think Ernie would have been proud? Would have been a fun night for her, I reckon.
Oh,
huh?
You'd have bet. I would have had her stand up and take applause. That was the type of woman she was. She deserved it.
Well, I know she would have been proud of you. I know your friends were proud of you. We're all proud of you. And once again, congratulations on all the accomplishments you had in rugby, and thank you for giving back to the sport.
Well, thank you for the sport being created. And I guarantee you, it's the best sport I ever played, and I still love it.
That's great. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the With You podcast. We want to congratulate Fred Alexander once again on his Lifetime Achievement Award, and want to thank you again, Fred, for your time here. And please join us next time on the With You podcast. If you want more information about the U.S. Rugby Foundation, our clubhouse program, our With You campaign, go to www.usrugbyfoundation.org. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.